Okay, hello, this is Dr. Yutaka Osakabe again. Nice to see you again. I hope you guys are doing well. So in this series, I will giving you a lecture on Sintoism. And just to brief recap, these are the three tables, three main themes of my series. First one was about Shinto culture and Japanese religiosity, which you probably already saw it, watched it. And the second theme of the series is today, which is about Shinto, its brief history. And third one, which will be the next one, will be on Shinto and politics, resilience of Japanese Christians. And today's focus, as I said, is Shinto, its brief history. So last week, it was more about general Japanese culture, Japanese religious culture, Japanese religiosity. And you learned that most Japanese people are quite pro about their own faith. They don't really pay much attention to the importance of choosing one particular religion. Instead, most people quite believe in participating in many kinds of religions. If you remember the picture I showed you, the first one was getting married in the church and getting blessings in the shrine and die in the Buddhist temple. And that picture illustrates how pro-Japanese people are about their own religiosity. Okay. And I told you that this plurality is closely tied with Shinto culture, Sintoism. Okay. So my goal today is at the end of today's class, you will get a hint of how Shintoism, how the development of Shinto history has influenced on Japanese people's religiosity. Okay. First, I would like you to look at this writing. I will read it to you. Of old, heaven and earth were still unparted, yin and yang undivided, and they were mixed in chaos like an egg. The dark, watery expanse contained a bud. From that clear and bright thing, frail fibers became sky, while a heavy and turbid thing, submerged and stagnant, became earth. The subtle essence easily collected into union, but the heavy and turbid thing hardened only with difficulty. Therefore, heaven took shape prior to earth. Afterwards, the gods were born from within. Okay. Please take a look at this, and please take out your note or your computer and write it down what you think about this writing. What comes to your mind? Okay. So this writing is from Nihon Shoki. Is one of the sacred texts, believed to be sacred text in Shinto teaching. So follow-up reflection questions. What comes to your mind? And what similarities with the Bible you found in this writing? Okay, I will show you again. Please take a look at this and reflect on these questions. What comes to your mind, and what similarity with the Bible you found? And please remember what you wrote, and hold your reflections in your mind. I will continue. I will start speaking a bit about Shintoism and its brief history. Okay. First, I would like to watch a YouTube clip. You can find from the list that I gave you. Okay, so please go to your list and find the first YouTube clip URL and watch it, please. And after you watch it, please come back again. Okay, so enjoy watching. Okay, so I hope you were successfully watched the YouTube clip. And the reflection question is this: how do you think of the content? Any similarities with any similarity with and or differences from the ways in which you celebrate your faith? Okay. Please take a moment and write down your answers in your notebook or in the computer, and you can pause the video. Okay, so I hope you were able to write down your answers. How do you think of the content, and any similarity with and or differences from the ways in which you celebrate your faith, Christian faith? And I hope the video fascinated you. I think it's a very so it's from Shinto culture, and I think you might find similarities with how you celebrate your faith, but probably you found more differences than similarities. Okay. Yes. So Shinto festivals is one of the most popular cultural events for many Japanese people. So you see the right hand of the top of the slides. So this is also from the same festival you saw from the video. You see it's a pack of people on the street celebrating Shinto event. It's a very, very Shinto, Japanese people enjoy participating in this. And in the middle, of the top of the middle, many festivals have. Most festivals have stalls, small shops. So people get together with friends, families, and celebrating ceremonies, as well as these food. So most shops are food, and people enjoy having meal on the street. Okay. Yeah. So on the left bottom, if you remember what I said last time, people like to go to shrine to pray on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And as I said before, more and more young people get married in the shrine like this. Here represents how young parents take their children to shrine to get blessings. So the video and these photos demonstrate how Shinto is deeply rooted, deeply lived by Japanese people. And some facts about Shinto. I already showed you these numbers. There are 88,000 shrines, and there are 11,000 priests, and there are 89.1 million followers of Shinto. Here, I think I have to mention it. Wait a minute, you might be thinking, wait a minute, you told me that people said 70% of Japanese people say I have no faith, right? So, but here you say there are 89.5 million people say I follow Shinto. So why is that? You're saying different things. It's confusing. But so the word follower is the key. You will know why, okay, in a minute. Okay, so I show you a few more numbers. Those who say they are affiliated Shinto, so the affiliated Shinto believers only 0.4%. Compared with other religions, traditional Buddhism 0.6%, Christianity 0.1%. Affiliated Shinto believers, so that's the key. The 89.1 million followers, and the next one is the believer. And the government asked, do you seek guidance from these people? People say, oh, I seek guidance from Shinto priest, 2.3%. Those who say, oh, I seek guidance from the monk, 4.2%. Those who say, oh, I seek guidance from fortune teller, 4.8%. I don't know how these numbers means to you, but and you can say you can find out many meanings from these numbers. But what I wanted to tell you is that not many people seek guidance from Shinto priest. Okay. Whereas 89.5 million people say, oh, I follow Shinto. How often do you go to shrines? A few times a year, 54%. So take a moment to think about what these numbers tell you, how these numbers confuse you. Okay, quite large number of people I follow Shintoism, but they don't say I'm affiliated. I'm not affiliated Shinto believers. And I don't seek guidance from the priest. And 50% of people only a few times a year. So what differences do you find with your Christianity in your country? I'm not I don't follow South Americans Christian Christian demography, religiosity too well. I would like to learn. It should be very interesting. But my guess is that if they say they follow Christianity, they will probably say, "Oh, I affiliated to Christianity." So there's a number probably much. And if they say, "I follow Christianity" or "I believe in Christianity," more people say, "I seek guidance from Christian pastors or priests." Right? And probably if you say, "I follow Christianity," probably in your country, people go to church more than a few times a year. So why people say I follow, but they don't believe in that, they don't believe in it, or it doesn't seem like they try to make connection with Shintoism, whilst they say they follow Shintoism. To answer this question, to learn basics of Shintoism can give you some good answers. So it doesn't answer every question, but only learning only basics already give you some definite answers for that. So the word Shinto means in Japanese the way of the gods. And it's a natural religion. So what natural religion is there's no founder or sacred text inspired by gods or any higher beings. So that's natural religion. There's no founder. No sacred text inspired by God. It's an ethnic religion. What it means, it's particular to Japan and Japanese people. So you don't find Shintoism in any other countries, really. If you find it, please let me know. It's a particular to Japan and Japanese people. So that's what ethnic religion means. And they believe in Yaoyorozu no Kami, literally means gods of 8 million. So we didn't count. I don't think anybody has counted, but it means that there are many, many gods in Shintoism, and every living thing has its own god in it. And Shintoism is more about rituals rather than belief. And how Shinto, the meaning, the way of God, the way of the gods, is closely related to this rituals rather than belief. Because it's not about believing things. It's more about teaching. It tells you how to live, not what to believe. It tells you how to live a good life, or how to practice religion. It's not so much about how to believe in certain things. It's how to believe in God. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't encourage you to believe in gods. It can encourage you to show what to do. So that's why it's about rituals rather than belief. And the central moral teaching of Shintoism, one of the central teachings of the Shintoism is this respect for tradition and family. So it's not so much about gods themselves, but it's about respect for tradition and family. So although Shinto does not consider any one volume as the wholly inspired revelation of which its religion is based, two books are considered sacred and have done much to influence the beliefs of the Japanese people. So So these works are Kojiki, meaning the records of ancient matters, and Nihon Shoki, the chronicles of Japan. The first writing that I showed you that looked like the Genesis in the Bible. So that's Nihon Shoki. They were both composed around 1700 AD, in that they report events occurring some 1300 years earlier in the history of Japan. In the next few slides, I will tell you a bit more about these Kojiki and Nihon Shoki. The Kojiki is the oldest existing written record in Japanese. Set in writing in about 700 AD, the Kojiki is the Japanese for a group of ancient stories that would be otherwise translated as records of ancient matters. They represent the culmination of the Yamato dominance over the islands of Japan towards the end of 7th century AD. So today's class, I will give you lots of names. You don't have to memorize it, you don't have to write them down. But I just like you to get some basic idea, okay? So you don't need to pay attention to those particular names. If you're interested, you can go back and do your own research, okay? So the records of ancient matters. So they represent the culmination of the Yamato dominance over the islands of Japan towards the end of 7th century AD. The Kojiki essentially begins with the beginning of the world, the birth of gods and goddesses, the creation of the island of Japan. So you remember how Japan looked like. Island, it's island, right? It's the island of Japan and the descent of the gods and goddesses to Japan itself. The line of the tale, of course, will conclude logically that rulers of the period, overseeing the completion of the text, we believe. So written in Chinese and strongly influenced by both Chinese and Korean methodological traditions, the Nihon Shoki was completed by Prince Toneri in 720 AD, based on the work of a number of Arya scholars. It provides much useful information about ancient Japan. Okay. The Japanese creation myth tells that the islands of Japan were the first divine creation. This idea of the divine origin of their lands is very ancient and goes hand in hand with the beliefs of Shinto. This national idealism is basically why Shinto has been limited to Japan. So let's go back to the writing. Of old, heaven and earth were still unparted, yin and yang undivided. And they were mixed in chaos like an egg, the dark water expanse contained about. From that clear and bright thing, frail fibers became sky, while a heavy and turbid thing submerged and stagnant became earth. The subtle essence easily collected into union, but the heavy and turbid thing hardened only with difficulty. Therefore, heaven took shape prior to earth. Afterwards, the gods were born from within. So yes, so this is the beginning of the Nihon Shoki. It begins with the creation myth. So and this creation myth tells you that the island of Japan was first divine creation. And the idea of the divine origin of the land is very ancient and goes hand in hand with the belief of Shinto. So I hope this interests you, how it begins to illustrate how, so that will be the next class main topic, but how Shintoism is closely tied with Japanese politics and Japanese people's public life. But before, so that's my goal for the next class. But to step up, to take a step to my goal, I would like to introduce you a very brief history of Shintoism, beginning from very ancient time, not probably ancient, but a very old time, up to 700 AD, so Shinto revival period. So history of Shintoism. So when the Japanese people and Japanese culture became aware of themselves, Shinto was already there. So the first period is Yayoi period, between 250 BC and 250 AD. So the Yayoi culture, which originated in the northern area of the island of Kyushu, so this is Kyushu, around the 3rd or 2nd century BC, is directly related to later Japanese culture and Shinto. The culture of the Jomon period was still spreading and developing across the rest of Japan when a new culture that we now call Yayoi began in Kyushu Island. This new culture featured several key technological advances. Pottery had been fired at higher temperatures than Jomon pottery and was turned on wheels. And so that means people started to use, and also people started to use metal objects, tools. So in this period, people beginning to develop their technological skills. And the arrival of rice as a food source, arrival of wet rice agriculture. First appearance of raised flour structures. The instruction of rice cultivation and wet rice cultivation, in particular, transformed the economy of the Japanese agriculture from a mix of hunter-gathering / burn agriculture to one that was capable of supporting permanent villages. So people used to go hunting, and in the winter they have to move to different in different places. They keep moving and moving. But when the when the arrival of rice as a food source, people's lifestyle has changed. So it's the lifestyle became permanent villages. They no longer have to move around. And it's also a full or partial divisions of labor and large population density. And 4 elements of Sintoism established in this period because of these changes of their lives, lifestyle. And first is animism. The term animism is derived from the Latin word anima, meaning breath or soul. The belief of animism is probably, you might already learned what animism is in this course, I'm not sure. But the belief of animism is probably one of the people's oldest beliefs, with its origin most likely dating to the Paleolithic age. From its earliest beginnings, it was a belief that a soul or spirit existed in every object, even if it was inanimate. So that's animism. Agricultural rights. Agricultural rights is where a community comes together to pray for harvest, with rules of worship established by that community or a religious leader. In the case of Sintoism, it was done probably by shamans who were women. The term shamanism comes from the Manchu tongues was saman. The noun is formed from the verb sa, to know. Thus, a shaman is literally one who knows. Shaman is a person believed to achieve various powers through trance. So it's the detachment from one's physical surroundings, or ecstatic. It's a being in a state of ecstasy. It's an ecstatic religious experience. Although shamans' repertoire vary from one culture to the next, they are typically thought to have the ability to heal the sick, to communicate with the other world, and often to escort the souls to the dead to that other world. Among the primary Yayoi religious phenomena were agricultural rights and this shamanism. And the last element is spiritualism. Spiritualism is a belief that departed souls can interact with the living. Spirituality is sought to make contact with the dead, usually through the assistance of a medium, a person believed to have the ability to contact spirits directly. Some mediums worked while in a trance-like state, and some claimed to be the catalyst for various paranormal physical phenomena. So that's 4 elements. So that's the 4 elements of Sintoism established in this period: animism, agricultural rights, shamanism, and spiritualism. And Himiko is a very important person who carried out these 4 elements of Sintoism established in this period. Himiko was the female ruler, and she was an obscure shaman queen. And so a female ruler of an early pre-Japan political region known as Yamatai, which was believed to have existed either the Yamato region or northern Kyushu of modern-day Japan. Her territory was observed by the Chinese as having no oxen, horses, tigers, leopards, sheep, or magpies. And it was noted that Himiko's countrymen tattooed their faces. Himiko never married, though she is recorded as having a brother who aided her with state affairs and diplomatic missions, which included maintaining a relationship with the Chinese kingdom of Wei. So as Shintoism continued to take shape, Confucianism reached Japan in the 5th century AD, and by the 7th century AD, it has spread among the people together with Chinese Taoism and Yin-Yang. So that means harmony of two basic forces of nature, philosophy, so Yin philosophy. All of these stimulated the development of Shinto ethical teaching with the gradual centralization of political power. Shinto began to develop as a national cult as well. So the next period is Yamato period. So in Yamato period, so elements were beginning to come together, and there are a few key, important people, and Himiko was the seminal one. So in Yayoi period, elements of Shintoism coming together around those key important people like Himiko. But in Yamato period, it begins to form into more concrete system, as a more concrete system. And Confucianism, the political morality, it's a political morality taught by Confucius and his disciples, which forms the basic of the Chinese jurisprudence and education. It can hardly be called a religion, and it does not teach the worship of any gods. So Confucianism is not believed to be a religion. It's more like a teaching. Though not organized as a religion, it has deeply influenced Japanese spiritual and political life in a comparable manner. The core idea is Ren, it's humanness, benevolence, signifying excellent character in according with the ritual forms. And Zong, loyalty to one's true nature, and so on. And the list is very important teaching of Confucianism. Examples of teaching: before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig two graves. You might heard of some saying, everything has its beauty, but not everyone. Since it, I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. It does not matter how slowly you go, so long as you do not stop. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in getting up every time we do. Respect yourself and others will respect you. Study the past if you would define the future. If you don't know life, how can we know death? By nature, men are nearly alike. By practice, they get to be wide apart. So yeah, the clever teaching. I quite enjoy some of it. It's a quite, I think it resonates some of the Christian teaching, right? Okay. So that's Confucianism. And Taoism, it's a principle, philosophy, and system of religion of China based on the teaching of Lao Tzu in the 6th century BC. It advocates preserving and restoring the Tao in the body and the cosmos. Taoism takes its name from the word Tao, the way, the ancient Chinese name for the ordering principle that makes cosmic harmony possible. Not the transcendent ultimate, the Tao is found in the world, especially in nature, and can be encountered directly through mystical experience. It is the ultimate reality as well as the proper natural way of life humans must follow. And lastly, Buddhism is in Japan. Buddhism is believed to have been first influenced to Japan in 539 AD, along with the Chinese language. Chinese letters and Buddhist styles of painting, sculpture, and architecture via Korea, when a Korean ruler attempting to form an alliance with the Yamato clan, sent some Buddhist text as a gift. At first, Buddhism was rejected by Shinto priests on the ground that embraced falling kami, spirits or deities. But later, it was accepted by members of Japanese court. Its acceptance rose and fell in the early years based on political factionalism and struggles. The Orthodox Mononobe and Nakatomi family, so Orthodox Mononobe family and Nakatomi family clans strongly opposed this new religion on the grounds that Japan already has its traditional and indigenous religion of Shinto. Religion of Shinto, but the influential Soga clan, more progressive Soga clan, favored Buddhism. They believed that it had much to offer for the enrichment of the culture. Thus, in the end, despite of disputes that took place among the court nobles, the emperor deferred the matter to the Soga clan. Shotoku Taishi, you see it in the picture. Shotoku Taishi, the first great patron of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism in Japan, enacted a 17-article constitution that established especially Confucianism ideals and Buddhist ethics as the moral foundations of the young Japanese nation. This served for centuries as the Japanese blueprint for court etiquette. Shotoku Taishi, the Prince of Holy Virtue, was a Japanese regent, statesman, and scholar. He also ordered the government to build many Buddhist temples, among which the most famous is Horyuji. You see it in the slide. Horyuji Temple, the world's oldest wooden structure, now standing near the former capital of Nara city. It was because of his work and influence and devotion that Buddhism was firmly established on Japanese soil, whereas although Shinto was already there. In Japan, Confucian and Taoism and the Buddhism ideals played a major role in the development of ethical and political philosophies. This was especially so during Japan's formative years, when Confucianism and Buddhism were introduced to Japan from Korea to China. Buddhism started gaining in popularity among the Japanese people from around 800 AD to 750 AD. 150 AD, Shinto became combined with other religions mixed with Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, and forming what is called Ryobu. Shinto, in other words, syncretism. In Ryobu, syncretism, Shinto, or dual aspect Shinto, by itself experienced a considerable decline during this period. Buddhists started gaining in popularity among Japanese people. Because gaining popularity among Japanese people. After death of Prince Shotoku, Buddhism continued to flourish among court nobles, monks, and artisans. National Buddhist temple called Kokubunji were built by the Emperor Shomu in every province, the headquarters of which was Todaiji Temple in Nara. Buddhist scriptures were introduced from China without much modification that were studied by Japanese monks. Buddhist images and ornaments were made by Japanese artisans, some of which can still be seen in the old temples in Japan, which are very beautiful. In the 8th century AD, there emerged tendencies to interpret Shinto from a Buddhist viewpoint. Shinto kami were viewed as, so this is interesting, Shinto kami were viewed as protectors of Buddhism, or were seen as the incarnations of Buddhist deities. Hence, shrines for protector kami were built with the principles of Buddhist temples, protectors of Buddhist temples. Besides, within and besides Buddhist temples. Buddhist temples in those days were the center of culture. They were not only used as places of worship, but also schools, hospitals, dispensaries, orphanages, refuges for older people. The monks were also school teachers, physicians, engineers, and developers of many construction projects. Therefore, the Japanese government encouraged and supported Buddhist institutions and monks spiritually and materially, so that they could work with the government and the people more effectively. Buddhist culture also became highly developed during this period. The introduction of painting, calligraphy, you see on the right hand, tea ceremonies, the next one, flower arrangement, the third one, and gardening. Yes. So these cultures were introduced by the monks from China, greatly influenced the formation of refinements in Japanese culture that have continued to develop up to present times. So in syncretism Shinto Ryobu, Shinto period, Shinto pretty much didn't get much attention. Buddhism became very popular by the enforcement of Shotoku Taishi and his followers. Buddhism became popular if when Buddhism became popular, Shintoism's popularity declined. It's understandable. Not only declined, but Shinto was viewed as protector of Buddhism. So it became the second rank of Japanese in Japanese culture. Around 700 AD, Shinto experienced a revival when the study of ancient Japanese texts were reinstituted. So this is Shinto revival period, and this is the last period I covered today. So bear with me in the next 5 minutes or so. Yeah, so around 700 AD, Shinto experienced a revival when the study of ancient Japanese texts were reinstituted. So Motori Norinaga represented the school schools in which study of Shintoism was engaged. Trained as physicians, he became under the influence of the Kokugaku movement, which stressed the importance of Japan's literary heritage. The critical method he used in his commentaries on Japanese classics provided the theoretical foundation of the modern Shinto revival. Rejecting Buddhism and Confucianism interpretations of Shinto, he traced the genuine spirit of Shinto to Japanese myth and sacred traditions. This restoration Shinto movement began with Motori Norinaga in the 18th century. Motori Norinaga and later other followers based their research on the Kojiki, you remember Kojiki, and other classic Shinto texts which teach the superiority of sun goddess Amaterasu. This formed the basic for state Shintoism, as the Japanese emperor claimed direct descent from Amaterasu. The emperor himself was therefore sacred, and all proclamations of the emperor had thus a religious significance. This was the starting moment of Japanese nationalism. So, and I will revisit, I will tell you more about Japanese nationalism and how Shintoism is related to Japanese development of Japanese nationalism in the next class. But today's class, in today's class, I wanted you to remember how Shintoism was developed and became the center of Japanese culture. And when Buddhism came in, or Confucianism, when other religious or other moral teaching became really popular and endorsed by key political leaders of Japan, Shintoism population got decreased. But there's one guy who wasn't a political leader, but more like a physician, more like a cultural leader, academic leader. He tried to, he was wary about Shinto. The true Shintoism is losing its touch. And he tried to revive it. Okay? And the way he revived it was the key for understanding the basic content of today's class. He try to revisit the birth of Shintoism, Shinto legend. And he found that how Japan is divinely inspired, and how the goddess who believed to created the land of Japan is related to Japanese emperors. And from that time, Japanese emperor believed to be divine and has religious significance. He tried to put the political and religious power to the emperor in order to revive the true genuineness, the trueness of Shintoism. And that was the starting moment of Japanese nationalism, which I will tell you more in the next class. So please take out your note or computer and work on these reflecting questions. What surprised you most? What interested you most today? What is one thing that you learned today and that you want to tell those who don't know anything about Shinto? And third, how did today's content make you reflect your own faith? So those are 3 questions. Please take a moment and work on these questions after this video. I will see you again in the next class.